Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dive into an idea that is so powerful, it might just change the way you look at our most basic institutions, hospitals, schools, and even the government itself.
All right, let's kick things off with a bit of a puzzle. You go to a hospital to get better, right? There's supposed to be these super sterile, safe places, so how is it that they sometimes end up being hotbeds for infection? It just doesn't add up.
Or hey, what about our schools? For decades, we've had reform after reform, new ways of teaching. So why is it that sometimes literacy and numeracy rates actually go backwards?
And then there's the government. Those big bureaucracies set up to help people. It feels like they just get bigger, more complicated, and honestly more in the way. You start to see a pattern here, don't you? The very organizations that are supposed to solve these problems, well, they start to feel like they are the problem.
And this isn't just about big public institutions. The source material points out this pattern is everywhere, even in the business world. Think about it. Dyson doesn't really want to solve your dust problem for good, right? They want to sell you a really cool way to deal with it. Dietitians give you diet plans, but they don't necessarily solve the root issues of weight management forever. And road authorities, their answer to traffic is more roads, not a fundamental solution to transportation.
So what in the world connects all these seemingly random, puzzling things? Well, it turns out one writer had this incredible aha moment where it all just clicked into place, explained by one single, powerful idea.
And here it is, the key. It comes from the writer and thinker Clay Shirky, who said, institutions will try to preserve the problem to which they are the solution. Let me say that again because it's a big one. Institutions will try to preserve the problem to which they are the solution. Just let that sink in for a second. It's kind of mind-blowing.
This brilliant idea has a name, the Shirky Principle. And what it's really saying is that an organization's own survival instinct can lead it to, without even realizing it, keep the very problem it was created to fix alive and kicking.
Okay, so let's dig into how this really works. Because the first thing you need to know is, this is not a conspiracy.
Yeah, the source material is super clear about this. We are not talking about bad people with bad intentions. School principals don't want kids to fail. Doctors are definitely not trying to make their patients sick. It is not some conscious, malicious plan.
So, if it's not malice, what is it? Well, it all comes down to a really basic, really human instinct, self-preservation. It's just scaled up to the level of a whole organization. I mean, nobody wants to work themselves out of a job, right? To make their entire life's work irrelevant? And this drive is so deep, it's often totally unconscious. So what happens is you get this collective inertia, where all the good intentions of individuals get swallowed up by the organization's need to simply exist. The problem and the solution get locked into this codependent dance. They need each other.
This is a lot like another famous idea you might have heard of, the Peter Principle. That's the one that says people get promoted to their level of incompetence and then they just get stuck there. Well, the Shirky Principle is kind of like that, but for the entire organization. The institution itself becomes so good at managing the problem, so dedicated to it, that it gets stuck. Perpetuating the problem inadvertently becomes its real job.
All right, now let's take this idea and apply it to the really high-stakes world of politics. And the source argues that this principle doesn't pick sides. It applies to everyone.
So the source material applies this idea to both sides of the political spectrum. It suggests that, for the right, the problem they need to preserve is a certain status quo, one that keeps them in control of a population that doesn't change too much. On the other hand, it argues that for the left, the goal becomes finding and championing marginalized groups, acting as their saviors, which in turn helps grow a voter base that depends on them. Now, according to this perspective, the problem itself becomes central to the whole political machine. It's what fuels fundraising, it's what shapes the news cycles, and it's what gets voters to the polls. It gives both sides a reason to manage the issue, but maybe not to solve it for good.
Okay, so if we accept that this principle is true, it leads us to a pretty powerful and honestly kind of depressing takeaway.
And it's this. This is the big corollary to the Shirky Principle. As soon as a problem is addressed by creating an institution, the problem will never go away. Just think about that. The moment we create a formal organization to solve something, we've basically guaranteed that problem will stick around forever. Why? Because for the institution to solve it completely would be in a way an act of suicide. The implications here are just massive.
I mean, just think about all the huge institutions we've built to tackle our biggest challenges. Agencies for drug control, organizations fighting climate change, authorities managing immigration. Ask yourself, does the FBI really want a world with zero international crime?
Does the Red Cross secretly hope for a world with no disasters? Of course not. Again, this is not about bad intentions. It's about institutional logic. Their funding, their jobs, their very reason for being, it's all tied to the problem continuing to exist. Their survival literally depends on it.
And that leaves us with one final, very big, very provocative question to chew on. If the very institutions we designed to solve our biggest problems can't, and in fact have an incentive not to, then who can? Where do the real solutions actually come from?